What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. It feels like forever since I did a video or a stream. I decided not to stream on Sunday and Monday just because the game week still got quite a bit to go. And if Salah hauls or Fernandes hauls in the second game, it kind of changes the outcome of what people are looking at, what people are thinking, the questions they'll have for the next game week. So my next stream will be on Thursday. So pretty much every single game would have finished then. So Thursday will be the next stream. But today we are talking about fixtures from game weeks 20 to 23. So it's time to start looking ahead, even though game week 19 hasn't quite finished yet. And basically, because we've all been concentrating on blank game weeks, free hits, double game weeks, bench boosts, triple captains, for a lot of the time we forget the fact that there's more fixtures to come, more game weeks to come. We have to start thinking about those players as well. So in this one, I'm going to look at the best team fixtures from game weeks 20 to 23 and talk about which players in those teams we should maybe be looking at targeting and possibly some to avoid as well. Just because a team has good fixtures doesn't mean that we should start targeting their players, or at least targeting all of the players in that team. So I'm going to give you my opinion on that. Do give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. Hit subscribe if you're new around here as well. And let's jump into the first team. So first up, we've got a little known team you may have heard a little bit about in game week 19 and previously. Manchester City, 3 really good fixtures to come from game weeks 20 to 22. Then it gets a little bit more difficult, but we'll talk about that in just a second. So West Brom away, Sheffield United at home, and Burnley away to come, which is decent. And obviously Man City are in really good form right now, especially when it comes to defensive returns, but also from an attacking sense as well. They've just put 4 past Crystal Palace. We're waiting to see what they do against Aston Villa. And then, like I said, they got these good fixtures to come. I think Man City were basically one of the reasons that I decided to wildcard. I think a double up or a triple up right now looks good. What I will say is when I put these images together, I put kind of the 3 main players that I want to talk about on screen, but it doesn't mean there aren't other players to talk about as well. So not having Cancelo up here, for example, is pretty harsh, right? And I'm a Cancelo owner, so I'm not saying that he's suddenly no good, but I think sometimes you have to look at kind of, and maybe I need to design one of these, a nailed on meter, right? So I think we put Diaz absolutely nailed on in that Man City defence. You'd be extremely surprised if he missed any matches that weren't through injury. Obviously, we saw him get a bit of a rest in the FA Cup, and they do have an FA Cup game coming up, so I expect there'll be some more rest there. Then you've got John Stones, who at this point, he's played so many matches, I don't think he's really that much less nailed on than Diaz. So if you think Diaz is completely nailed on, Stones is maybe one tiny little step below that. But right now, that partnership is so good. Why would Pep want to break it up? Plus, there's a bunch of injuries there anyway. And then Cancelo is probably one more down again, where he's mostly nailed on. He's going to play most matches, but you're going to see him miss out from time to time. So he's more like a 4 games in 5 player, a 5 games in 6 player, or however you want to look at it. Obviously, they do have Zinchenko that can play left. Walker's back now, playing right back. So it's a little bit of a concern. But when you watch the games, like Cancelo's underlying attacking numbers are so good, right? I know I keep saying this and I say things like this a lot, but he must have a mega haul coming. We're not talking John Stones 21 points because that's just ridiculous, but I'm talking assist, 3 bonus, clean sheet, 12 plus points, depending on whether he gets any other attacking returns. So I still like Cancelo, but I guess if I was picking again, would I go Diaz and Stones? Possibly, but that's also a little bit knee-jerky, right? If Cancelo plays against Villa and gets a haul, suddenly we forget about that first game against Crystal Palace. So basically what I'm saying is their defence is really good to target right now. The other option is obviously attackers. De Bruyne is the one that stands out by a mile. He is the best one to buy. He's captainable. He's got penalties, right? Pepper still said he has penalties, even though Sterling took that one the other day. I think the problem with other attackers for Man City is you just don't know week to week who's going to start, right? After Foden scored the other day, I think it was against Brighton, people started talking about him again. I even mentioned him in my captaincy video. Bam, he doesn't start, right? And that is the problem. The same with Mahrez, etc. The only other ones I would consider are Sterling. But I think in the way people's teams are set up right now, it's extremely difficult to get Sterling into a team because he's so much money. And he hasn't really been delivering, right? He put a good free kick in against Crystal Palace, but not much outside of that. Gundogan is another one, though, at a cheap price. And he looks fairly nailed on right now. And he is getting forward. Obviously, the goal against Crystal Palace was a bit of a wonder goal. But ultimately, I think he looks like a pretty good pick as well. So it depends whether you want to go double attack or double defence. Right now, I think double defence is where it's at, because you can't trust a huge amount of the other attackers to start. So for me, a double up, either one defender plus De Bruyne or a triple up, two defenders plus De Bruyne, looks too good to turn down right now. So many clean sheets where you could go down the route of, well, they're due to concede a goal, and maybe that will happen against Villa. But the next three fixtures, right, if they don't get at least two clean sheets, I'd be extremely surprised. Now, the fixtures do turn after game week 22, where I was originally looking to offload, right? But you've heard of someone I've mentioned a lot of times on this channel, Ben Credin. He looks at all the double game weeks, blank game weeks, and stuff like that in advance. And he thinks that Man City could have double game weeks in game week 24, 26, and 27. So not only are they going to have plenty of doubles to come, where you're going to want to double or triple up, they also have three good fixtures in the next kind of 3 game weeks as well. So I would definitely be looking at getting in there. It's arguable whether De Bruyne is the best captain this week. A lot of people will look at Fernandes with Sheffield United at home. We'll debate that on the captaincy video. But right now, 2 defenders and De Bruyne looks the way to go. So if you haven't already got that, you can maybe look at starting to move towards it. I don't think you need to rip your team up to get there, but it's definitely good. So Man City, really good fixtures, big double game weeks to come as well, and just great options that are tearing it apart, especially in defence. I still like Cancelo. The Stones and Diaz just look a little bit more nailed right now. And I don't know if Diaz is going to get enough attack and returns to warrant going for him over one of these. But if I had Cancelo, which I do, I wouldn't be panicking about owning him just yet. So in some ways, Aston Villa are a bit of an unknown right now. Not because we haven't seen them play plenty of games this season, but obviously they've been without training. Some players would have tested positive. Some players have been isolated. So we don't know how much all of that and the training ground being closed and stuff like that is going to affect them. From the look of kind of pictures that are showing players in training, a lot of the first team seem to be back training. So I don't think they're going to have too many issues in terms of personnel. And because we're looking at game week 20 onwards, we're obviously going to get to see them play in game week 19. So they have Man City first and then Newcastle. Now, Man City is going to be a test of just how good they are, just how fit they are, because that's going to be a really difficult game. Obviously, any game against Man City is. And then the Newcastle game will give us a show of just how good they really still are at attacking, because Newcastle are awful, and Villa should be able to put at least kind of 2, maybe even 3 goals against them if they're up to scratch. Because so far this season, they have been one of the best attacking sides and one of the best defensive sides as well, all rolled into one with some really good value players as well. So I think a double up or a triple up at some point is warranted. Obviously, there's some debate to be had over whether we should triple up on teams, because obviously if their games get called off, that's an absolute killer to our FPL teams. But I just hope with what's happened recently and the fact obviously vaccines and stuff are going out, Premier League teams are being tested so much more than maybe they were over the Christmas period, that we won't have these issues so much. But obviously it is something to think about. But like Man City, they have games to rearrange now, right? They've got a lot of games in hand, and they're going to have to be put into double game weeks at some point. Now, I don't know when they'll be. Unlike Man City, they don't have games in Europe, so it's not so much of a rush to necessarily get them in. They could put them in later on in the season. So that's something to think about. But Aston Villa are a team that I would look to target. Now, talking of targeting, Matt Target is the cheapest way into the defence, 4.6 million. I think he looks quite good if you want to back the Villa defence. Fixtures-wise, Burnley away, Southampton away, West Ham at home, Arsenal at home. Arsenal, I'm still not sure what to make of them. They played really well against Newcastle in the second half last night. But from an attacking threat, I don't know if they'll trouble Villa that much. I think it'll be quite a tight game. And then West Ham, Southampton, Burnley are not teams that are scoring too many goals at the moment. Obviously, Antonio is back, which is going to help West Ham if he can stay fit. But ultimately, I think defensively, that's quite a good set of fixtures. Now, obviously, if you've got someone like Martinez instead, he's a really good option in goal, but he has come up a bit in price. So if you don't already own him, he's still a good option, but he is going to cost you a bit more. So if you want to get into the defence, Target might be an easier option. And then up front, or in attack, Grealish is the one for me, right? His numbers this season are absolutely ridiculous. Even though he's missed games, he's still the 4th highest scoring midfielder. He's still the 4th highest scoring midfielder in terms of points per match. And his underlying numbers are crazy. Like his XGI per 90, this doesn't include penalties, obviously he doesn't take them, is 0.66. That's on a par with the likes of Bruno Fernandes this year. The biggest difference between the two is Fernandes does have penalties and Grealish doesn't. So in terms of underlying numbers, Grealish is right up there. And for 7.7 million, that's a bargain. And I am looking to get him back in as soon as possible, to the point where if he plays in Game Week 19 and he looks sharp and so does the rest of the team, I might even bring him back for game week 20. I just think he's that good and has been so far this season. And I'm thinking ahead to those double game weeks that will be rearranged at some point as well. So I really like Grealish. He's a great option. Up front, Watkins is kind of a divisive character in the FPL community because some people really like him and some people hate him because he doesn't score enough goals, or he hasn't so far. His underlying numbers, again, are really good for the season, right? So we're not talking penalties here because he has obviously taken, I think, 2 in the league. His underlying numbers are 0.5 non-penalty XG per 90 minutes. So 0.5. Bearing in mind Grealish, his non-penalty XG and XA together are 0.66. Watkins' goal threat alone is 0.5. And to put that into further context, that's almost like getting a chance for a goal every other game. So 19 goals in a season. Doesn't necessarily mean it'll work out like that, but it's pretty good. And that's the same as what Ings got last year. Now, you can say that Ings is a better finisher, but Watkins does get into the right places, and eventually he's going to start converting some of these chances that he's getting. So I think he's a good option. Like, if I was looking at cheap players right now, cheap forwards, I'd be looking at Antonio because he's fit, Bamford, and then probably one more if I was playing 3-4-3. And Watkins would probably be the one right now. I don't see who else I would put in there unless you're going to the likes of Kane. So I still really like attacking Villa's fixtures and going for them. I still think they're really good, cheap value players. Obviously, you can wait to see what happens in game week 19. Don't take too much into account for Man City because it's the first game back and it's difficult anyway. But the Newcastle game, I think, is more of a look at how they're going to perform going forward. So I really like Villa. Don't forget about them. I know some people have still got them in their team from the blank and stuff like that when they free hit. Some of us sold them, but I am definitely looking at getting back. I think they're decent. So I feel like Chelsea are a bit of the forgotten team in FPL because they're looking good earlier in the season. Obviously, I know attack has been a bit of a weird one all season, but defensively, like, we're on Chilwell, Reece James, and it's kind of been forgotten about for a lot of reasons, right? One, injuries, of course, over Christmas, then fixtures, then not having a game in game week 18, then having a double in game week 19, but not necessarily one that people were looking to target. But the fixtures are still really good from 20 onwards, especially from a defensive point of view. So I think there's opportunity there if you don't own a Chelsea defender. And I almost bought Chilwell in for the double. It was only because I didn't want to take another hit that I went against it. So I would back them. I would say their defensive numbers have gotten slightly worse over the last 4 games. So they're the 4th worst team for expected goals conceded. We know Kante has missed out a bit. Obviously, they've moved Zuma out as well in the last game. Now, that looks like potentially that is him losing his place. And I think what we've seen with Man City, they've now got a partnership. They've got a back 4. Okay, Cancelo rotates in and out, but that centre-back partnership with Diaz and Stones is really working. So that's maybe the only concern I would have about Chelsea right now, is that they're moving Zuma out, a player that's been there the whole season. Now they're going to have to learn a new partnership alongside Thiago Silva, and maybe that's not ideal. But I think when you look at the numbers they had defensively over the last 4, they've had some tricky fixtures in that time as well. They played Man City, they've played Villa. They've not been pushovers at all. So that doesn't concern me too much because the numbers for the whole season are still good. It's still that main team. And once Kante's back as well, that's looking pretty decent. So in terms of who to target defensively, I think Mendy is a good choice in goal, 5.1 million. If you wanted to cover the defence and like you've got like, I don't know, Diaz, Stones plus one more defender, you don't have room for a Chilwell or a James. So you go for Mendy instead. And I think looking at the fixtures, Wolves, Burnley, Sheffield United are all really good fixtures for defensive returns, and they got good fixtures in 24 and 25 as well, and they'll probably have a double game week in game week 26. So yes, that double game week could be difficult, but if you've already got players in place, that's always kind of handy, especially if they've had good fixtures before. So I like Mendy. I really like Chilwell as well. I think he's kind of gone off the radar a little bit, but with Ziyech back, we saw a lot of times Ziyech was looking for Chilwell on the back post from that right-hand side. So I really like Chilwell. I think ultimately Reece James is the way I would go because he's a lot cheaper, but he needs to prove his fitness first. He didn't play in their first game against Fulham. Let's see if he plays against Leicester. Let's see if he comes through that unscathed, and then let's see what Lampard says about him. But obviously for the cheaper money, he's good, but Chilwell gives you a bit more of a kind of reliable player right now, okay? He came back from injury and he's been playing ever since. In attack, I find it difficult to back them, even with the good fixtures. Like, I think Wolves and Burnley are teams you can get at the moment. And Sheffield United away, I think they already put 4 past them, and they can be gotten at too. So I do quite like the fixtures, but I'm struggling to find an attacker to back. And one of the problems is they block another big hitter, right? And I fully understand that Werner is cheaper by quite a lot than De Bruyne, Salah, etc. But once you put a player like that in, it does block a big hitter, because the chance of you being able to have Salah, Fernandes, De Bruyne, Son and Werner is very low. You've got to hurt the rest of your team. So at that point, I just find it difficult to put them in. I think Man United have got quite good fixtures. Man City do. Liverpool have not got bad fixtures. I don't think many people are going to be selling Salah, for example, to get Werner. So if I had to go for an attacker, it probably still would be Timo Werner. But it feels like at this point, it's like you say it enough times, it will come true that he'll do well. His underlying numbers are still quite good in terms of his goal threat. But as we've all seen, he is not putting easy chances away. And how does that affect his confidence? That's something we can't measure by numbers. We can only kind of speculate on it. And it does worry me a bit, especially when you've got to pay 9.2 million. Christian Pulisic is another player I really liked last year. I wanted him in my team to the point where I sold Son for Pulisic at 10:59 a.m. on Game Week 1 deadline. It just hasn't happened for him, right, at all. And I just worry about that Chelsea attack. Was it too many changes at once? And are they still trying to gel together? We've seen glimpses at times of how good they can be, but I just worry about putting that money in. So despite the fixtures, I think I would still avoid Chelsea attack. But defence I like, and if you've got them, great. If you haven't, it might be time to might be time to start looking at them. So there's a few other teams I wanted to talk about as well. Rather than going through them all in full, talking about particular players and stuff like that, I thought I'd put them all on screen at once. So Leicester are definitely a team that I think look interesting. Now, whether or not a fixture should be green or orange, we can debate till the cows come home, for want of a different saying, in the comments. Like, I'm sure some people will say that Everton away should be orange, Wolves away potentially still as well. Should Southampton at home be green for Man United? But I think colour coding fixtures is difficult, because sometimes they're good defensively but not attacking wise, and sometimes it's vice versa. Like Man United versus Southampton, they put 3 against them away from home. I don't see why they couldn't put 2 or 3 against them at Old Trafford as well. But from a defensive point of view, I don't think Southampton's necessarily that easy, although they haven't been scoring a lot of games recently. So that's just a quick explanation on the fixtures. They could be green, they could be orange. I'll let you decide that. But I do think Leicester have got good fixtures. I do worry about targeting their defence if you don't already own a defender. Like, if you've got James Justin, he has been brilliant, right? From start of the season till now, he is still playing. We don't know when Ricardo's definitely going to be back. And even when he is, there's a chance that Justin slots into right centre-back if they play 5 at the back. He could play left-back as well. They could put Ricardo on the right. And Ricardo's been out for so long, they probably don't want to rush him back too much anyway. So they might just ease him in. So Justin still looks good, but I don't know if I would pay 5 million with all those worries hanging over his head when I can get John Stones for 5.1 million. So that's something to think about for sure. So he's someone to look at. Barnes and Maddison are slowly ticking over, and I do think in particular the Everton game could be good. They have at times this season looked defensively suspect, but they have improved recently. Obviously, they missed their game in Game Week 19, so we'll see what they do when they come back and play Leicester. But Leeds at home and Fulham at home are decent enough, and Wolves have been conceding as well. So Barnes and Maddison as cheap players in midfield, if you wanted to do something a little bit different, could be options. And Jamie Vardy is also obviously an option too. He's 10.1 million, so it's quite expensive. But against Leeds in particular, there's going to be goals in that one. So I really like him. So if you've got him, we'll definitely continue holding him. And I think Fulham and Wolves are good fixtures too. And by the way, Spurs have depending on how you look at it, they have a bit of a tricky run. They got Liverpool, then Brighton, which ain't bad. And then I think it's Chelsea. So they play they play Liverpool and Chelsea in the next 3. But then in Game Week 23, they play West Brom. So you could potentially hold Vardy for the next 3 and then look at switching to Kane, for example, for a bit more money. So that's something worth looking at. Man United's fixtures are still good from an attacking point of view. So those of you that are thinking about not just having Fernandes, having Rashford as well, again, he could be an option for the next kind of 2 or 3. And then you look to change to Son in Game Week 23, right? That could be another way of doing it, depending on who you already own. Sheffield United's a good fixture in 20. I think defensively, these fixtures are all quite good. Obviously, not ideal playing Arsenal, Southampton and Everton, but the way Man United have been defending, if they put Fred and McTominay in place in a couple of those, we're not conceding too many goals, right? Didn't concede any to Liverpool, which obviously was always going to be a tight game in the way that both teams played it. But I think outside of Sheffield United, there's still another clean sheet or two in there. So Man United defenders potentially an option. Wan-Bissaka, though, doesn't have too much attacking threat. Luke Shaw has been looking really good, but both he and Maguire are on 4 yellow cards. So we'll have to wait until that increases to 10. So they don't get suspended for the next game. So worth looking at. And then Fulham showing some signs of a bit of a resurgence, but I'm not sure who you go for there. Lookman potentially is a cheap option instead of Saka or Souček or Rafinha, right? You could have like a £5 to £5 million spot in midfield and just potentially rotate around those. So Lookman, Cavallero is obviously on penalties, I believe, as well, so he could be an option. Defensively, outside of Areola, the goalkeeper, I'm not sure I'd really go there right now. But Brighton away, West Brom away, and West Ham at home, are not bad fixtures defensively. And they were doing really well against Chelsea until they went down to 10 men as well. So don't overlook Fulham. I think goalkeeper-wise, they've still got fixtures to rearrange. So again, they will have some double game weeks coming up too. And Areola's very cheap, so it's probably someone worth looking at. But let me know in the comments below if you're looking to target any of these teams, and are there any teams that I've missed who also have good fixtures that you think that you're going to be going for. So there we go. That's it for this video. Please do hit that like button and subscribe button if you haven't already. I know I had a bit of a break over the last couple of days, like Sunday and Monday, but it was just nice to do that given how hectic it has been. And like I said, the game week hasn't quite finished yet. So I will stream on Thursday, I think 10 o'clock, because Liverpool versus Burnley is at 8 o'clock. So apart from Aston Villa versus Newcastle on the Saturday, all the fixtures have been finished. We can start looking at points, ranks, and then what we're going to do for game week 20. And then tomorrow we'll have a watch this style video up as well. So it'll probably differ slightly to this one because this is just general fixtures and players to target. But I already own some of these, so obviously they're not on my watch list, but I might have others to put on. So that's probably what I'm going to do tomorrow. And then next week we'll have all normal content. There's 4 game weeks in the space of not very many days coming up, where we've got like Tuesday deadline, then Saturday, then Tuesday, then Saturday. So looking forward to that. We'll have lots of regular content with the videos coming every single day. So watch out for that. And lastly, if you've not checked out Patreon, link in the description below with all the perks and benefits over there. And I'll just shout out every single person that has signed up that's up on the Legends wall. There is over 200 members now. We're way past 200, in fact. We're probably pushing more closer to 250. So thank you very much to Will H and Jared W that signed up since the last stream, and everybody that has signed up in general. Really appreciate the support, and I hope you're liking what you're seeing over there. If you want to join, link in the description below. Otherwise, I'll leave it there. Please keep showing your support by liking the video, subscribing, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you tomorrow for another video, and then Thursday for a live stream.